The palace has faced scandals before, but this time, the danger isn't a leaked photo or a whispered affair. It's a book. A royal memoir allegedly written by Prince Andrew, packed with private conversations, buried favours, and the kind of truth that doesn't just embarrass, it collapses reputations overnight. And when word reaches Prince William, he doesn't call lawyers, he moves like a man at war. Even more shocking? Sophie steps in beside him, quietly choosing a side that could change everything. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. It begins the way palace nightmares always begin, not with a headline, but with a whisper that arrives too confidently to ignore. A publisher's name is murmured in a secure corridor. A manuscript is referenced by people who shouldn't even know the word exists. And then the phrase that makes every aide go still outside fact-checkers. Not historians, not friendly editors, but outsiders trained to sniff out weakness and turn it into a narrative that sells. The warning is simple and brutal. Andrew isn't writing to explain himself. He's writing to expose what he claims he was made to carry, and he's doing it with the cold clarity of someone who believes he has already been condemned. William's briefing is short, sharp, and deliberately incomplete, as if even speaking the details risks summoning them into reality. Certain chapters allegedly name private meetings that were never meant to be remembered, financial arrangements that were never meant to be traced, and untouchable names that were never meant to be spoken aloud. The institution's internal alarm doesn't blare, it tightens like a hand around the throat. Because if Andrew publishes, the damage won't stop at Andrew. It will ricochet through anyone who once stood near him, anyone who signed something, promised something, looked away at the wrong moment, and William understands that kind of blast radius. Andrew is smiling, because panic proves he still matters tonight. He's lived his entire life learning how one crack becomes a collapse. Then Sophie appears in the strategy space where she is rarely seen, calm on the surface, but with an urgency that reads like fear sharpened into purpose. People stare, because Sophie is the royal who survives by staying above the storm, not stepping into it. Yet she chooses this fight, and in doing so, she silently tells the room that the threat is not theoretical. Her voice is measured, but the message lands like thunder. Andrew is spiraling, and spiraling men don't negotiate like family, they negotiate like enemies. When a trusted aide finally says it out loud that advance excerpts may already be in someone else's hands beyond the UK, the air changes. The danger is no longer the memoir's release date. The danger is that the story has already begun, and it's being told by people who don't care what it destroys. But to understand why William would risk his own future to stop this book, you have to understand what Andrew believes the monarchy stole from him, and what he's prepared to take back. Prince Andrew isn't acting like a man seeking redemption. He's acting like a man making a final trade, silence for survival. Insiders whisper he's felt discarded by the institution he once believed would protect him forever. But now, the memoir becomes something else: currency. A weapon shaped like a confession. And the scariest part? The palace can't tell whether Andrew is bluffing, or whether he's holding secrets so lethal they'll force the royal family to kneel. Here's where the story turns truly disturbing. Publishing a royal memoir isn't simple, especially one the palace desperately wants buried. So if Andrew is really moving forward, someone with resources, legal muscle, and influence must be backing him. And when William's team begins tracing the connections, they don't just find an agent, they find an ecosystem. Quiet calls, meetings in private clubs, advisors who don't usually work with disgraced royals. Suddenly, the question isn't what Andrew wrote, it's who benefits if it explodes. Because beneath the polished silence of the palace, Andrew's story is no longer a scandal, it's a ticking device wrapped in paper, and he's holding it like a man who thinks he's already lost everything worth protecting. His rage isn't loud anymore. It's controlled. It's the kind of anger that doesn't need shouting because it believes it has proof. The humiliation has fermented into a new identity, The abandoned royal, the sacrificed son. The man convinced he was pushed into exile so the institution could continue pretending it was untouchable. And the most dangerous thing about a person like that is not what he knows, it's what he believes he is owed. Inside palace circles, the fear spreads in layers. Not just fear of Andrew's words, but fear of the tone behind them, because this isn't framed as an apology. It's framed as instruction, as exposure, as a ruthless insider's manual titled in spirit like a warning, "You think you know the truth." It reads, they whisper, like Andrew is daring the world to look past the crowns and into the machinery. How power really works, not as gossip, but as a system favors traded like currency, loyalty demanded like tribute, and silence treated like oxygen. And William hears that phrase, how power really works, and he doesn't just feel anger. He feels the cold shock of recognition. Because that's exactly the kind of story that spreads faster than any denial. Andrew's inner circle, the few still close enough to hear him speak without flinching, feeds the paranoia like fuel. They reinforce the idea that history is being rewritten to erase him, that people who once nodded politely now pretend they never knew him, that the palace is laundering its own past by pushing him off the page. And Andrew responds the way cornered men respond, by building receipts. Names, dates, what was promised, who approved what, who gave the quiet permission that later became a loud refusal. He keeps notes like a man keeping score not for court but for leverage. The palace isn't terrified because every detail is true. The palace is terrified because enough of it will sound true, and once the public believes even one thread, they'll pull until the whole tapestry tears. That's when the story stops being about a disgraced prince and becomes about a supply chain. Because the palace security apparatus doesn't treat the publisher like a business partner, it treats them like a threat actor. A hostile force with a contract instead of a weapon. William's team begins tracing calls, introductions, quiet meetings that shouldn't exist. And the pattern is ugly. This is not a lone royal scribbling in bitterness. This is organized. Coordinated. Someone is smoothing the path, removing obstacles, making sure Andrew feels protected enough to keep going. And then come the whispers of a ghostwriter, someone with ties to political journalism and ex-boss. Someone who knows exactly how to turn messy secrets into clean, devastating headlines. Not a helper, a handler. The strangest detail isn't the writing, it's the confidence. A legal team appears that doesn't behave like a normal publishing firm's support. They are unusually aggressive, unusually sure of themselves, as if they've already measured the palace's reach and decided it isn't enough. They don't sound intimidated, they sound prepared. And in the background, coordinated PR begins to surface like test balloon stories that appear online, probing public appetite for Andrew's version of events, gauging outrage, measuring sympathy, mapping the angles. It feels less like publishing and more like psychological pressure. Push the palace, wait for the reaction, exploit the crack. William watches it all with a tightening jaw, because he understands something the public doesn't. If Andrew goes public, the blast won't be clean. Innocent family members could be pulled into the damage simply by standing too close to the wrong photograph, the wrong meeting, the wrong rumor. Collateral doesn't require guilt, it requires proximity. And William's mind starts assembling the chessboard. If someone is encouraging Andrew to include material that forces negotiation, then this isn't about telling a story. This is about forcing a deal. It's about making the institution bleed until it pays to stop the bleeding. Then Sophie receives a message that changes the temperature of the entire room. It's short, sharp, and written like someone is afraid of being seen. This isn't about Andrew. He's being used. No signature, no comfort, just a warning with teeth. And suddenly, every assumption twists. Because if Andrew is being used, then the memoir isn't only a confession. It's a lure, a distraction. A bomb someone else intends to detonate from a safe distance, while Andrew takes the blame and the monarchy takes the ruins. And that's exactly why William doesn't just panic, he strategizes, because he knows the memoir isn't Andrew's real threat. The real threat is who might be helping him publish it. And that message is what pulls Sophie fully into the fight, because Sophie may be the only one who can get close enough to Andrew to learn what's real and what's bait. Sophie isn't known for chaos. She's known for composure, the royal who listens more than she speaks, the one people underestimate because she rarely demands attention. But that's exactly why her move is so chilling. When Sophie chooses to stand beside William, it signals something the public never sees. The family is splitting into survival factions. Sophie doesn't join William for optics, she joins because she understands Andrew in a way others don't. She knows how resentment turns into recklessness, and she knows what Andrew could reveal if he feels cornered. To the outside world, Sophie is polite restraint and measured smiles, a presence that never seems to push. But inside the machine, her power has always been quieter and far more dangerous. She has years of trust stored like currency. She knows which doors open without knocking, which voices soften when she speaks, and which people tell the truth only when they think no one is listening. That is her invisible strength, access without noise, influence without ego. And now she steps into William's orbit at the exact moment the palace feels like a locked room filling with smoke. Because she can sense what the others are too proud to admit, this isn't only a scandal. It's a psychological collapse waiting to happen. Sophie's face never gives away the full story, but the tension behind her calm is unmistakable. She's torn between two instincts that can't live together, protecting the institution that gave her purpose, and confronting the private disgust she's carried for years about things she's seen, things she's heard, things she's been forced to swallow to keep the family from splintering. That conflict doesn't make her weak. It makes her precise. Because she isn't fighting for Andrew, and she isn't even fighting for William. She's fighting for control over what becomes truth when the world is hungry for blood. And she knows Andrew is no longer thinking like a brother or an uncle. He's thinking like a man who believes the palace made him disposable. That's what terrifies her most. Andrew's mental state, the whispers suggest, is deteriorating. Isolation has sharpened his bitterness into obsession. Every headline feels like persecution. Every silence feels like betrayal. Every closed door feels like proof that the family is rewriting history and erasing him while he's still alive to watch it happen. In that state, he becomes easy prey. Outsiders can flatter him, guide him, convince him that publishing is power. Sophie sees the trap. A resentful man is the perfect instrument, because he'll strike without caring who else bleeds. And while others argue over legal strategies and public optics, Sophie focuses on something colder, the manuscript itself. She suspects there is one chapter, just one, that cannot exist in daylight. Not because it embarrasses, but because it implicates. Because it changes the story from Andrew's downfall into the monarchy's design. She won't say it aloud. Not yet. She doesn't need to. The way her eyes narrow when the excerpt is mentioned tells William everything. This is not about saving Andrew from himself. This is about preventing a chain reaction. Then the nightmare happens while the palace is still debating strategy. An excerpt surfaces. Not publicly yet. It slips into a private circle, then another, moving like a contagion among media intermediaries and high net worth figures who trade information the way others trade stock tips. The so-called sample chapter reads like a confession fused to an accusation, and William's blood runs cold, because the bitterness isn't the point, the calculation is. It's written to force a reaction, to provoke panic, to bait someone into a mistake that can be photographed, quoted, denied, and then proven. In one stroke, William realizes this isn't a memoir launch. It's a hostage situation, only the hostage is the monarchy's image. The palace spirals into emergency mode. People talk over each other, desperate for a clean solution in a dirty crisis. Some insist the manuscript must be bought, no matter the cost, because money is cheaper than collapse. Others demand legal destruction, believing intimidation can still work if it's sharp enough. A third faction argues negotiation, terrified that pressure will push Andrew into open war. But Sophie hears the rhythm underneath the chaos. The excerpt isn't just damaging, it's targeted. It's designed to trigger specific people, specific memories, specific panic. Psychological warfare, dressed up as publishing. And the worst part is the uncertainty. Is the excerpt authentic, planted or edited, just enough to lure them into revealing what they're trying to hide? Sophie makes the most dangerous decision of all. She requests a private meeting with Andrew, no aides, no lawyers, no permission, because she knows this can't be solved from conference rooms and curated statements. It must be solved in the one place the monarchy hates most, in direct human truth, where pride can't hide behind protocol. But as she reaches for that meeting, another detail slices through the room like ice. A source claims Andrew didn't leak the excerpt. Someone else did. And Andrew might not even know. But meeting Andrew is only half the mission. The real shock comes when William and Sophie realize the memoir may already be out of Andrew's hands. And when William finally confronts Andrew's camp, what he hears next changes the entire battle. Andrew isn't just threatening to publish, he's demanding protection. This is the moment the monarchy stops being a family and becomes a war room. Because Andrew allegedly sends an ultimatum, he will pause publication only if certain conditions are met. Not requests. Conditions. Protection. Resources. Status. And perhaps most shocking of all, a restoration of dignity he believes was stolen. William is furious, Sophie is cautious, because they both know the trap. If they concede, they set a precedent that scandal gets rewarded. But if they refuse, Andrew may press the button that ends them all. The message lands with the weight of a threat dressed as negotiation. Andrew isn't asking to be heard, he's demanding to be restored. Security guarantees, financial stability, a controlled public narrative, and that one poisonous phrase that makes the air in every room turn thin, an internal apology. Not from the press, not from the public, from the institution itself, as if the crown must kneel and admit it used him, discarded him, and now owes him protection. William's reaction is immediate and volcanic, because he recognizes the shape of the weapon. This is blackmail polished to look like a final compromise, and if the palace folds once, it will never stand straight again. But Sophie doesn't answer with rage. She answers with dread, because she can hear the instability between the lines. Push too hard, and Andrew doesn't retreat, he detonates. In her mind, the risk isn't that Andrew gets what he wants. The risk is that Andrew stops caring about consequences entirely. She argues in careful, controlled language that doesn't sound like sympathy, but functions like strategy. Cornered men become reckless men. And reckless men don't just destroy enemies, they destroy bystanders. And in a family where proximity equals guilt, innocent faces could end up paying for someone else's war. The palace fractures with a speed that feels almost humiliating. Advisors split into camps, not based on morality, but survival. One side insists on strength, on refusing every demand, on proving the monarchy cannot be held hostage by a disgraced prince. Another side wants a quiet settlement, a private containment plan, because they're terrified of what might be in those pages. And underneath both positions is the unspoken truth. Everyone is calculating their own exposure. Loyalty becomes conditional. Fear becomes leadership. Self-preservation starts wearing the mask of duty. Then Andrew shifts the emotional blade. He frames himself as the sacrificed son never loved, only used. He claims he held secrets not to harm the family, but to protect it, swallowing humiliation so the bigger picture could survive. And that's what makes his ultimatum so morally suffocating. If he is lying, he is a villain. If he is telling the truth, then the institution has been feeding itself on silence for decades. Either way, William realizes this isn't just Andrew trying to bargain. It's Andrew rewriting the entire story so the palace becomes the aggressor and he becomes the witness who finally breaks. That's when William begins noticing details that don't belong to Andrew. The phrasing is too precise, the timing is too sharp. The demands are structured like they've been workshopped by professionals who understand pressure and optics. It's not just what Andrew asks for, it's how he asks. It feels coached, like someone has taught him which words trigger panic behind palace walls. Sophie senses it too, especially when new leaks appear with strategic timing arriving exactly when the palace is most vulnerable, when certain events or absences make the institution look distracted. The excerpt itself carries hints of insider language, phrases that mirror private communications, as if the text was designed by someone who knows the family's rhythm, their formalities, their weak points. At first, it's easy to believe the threat comes from outside publishers, journalists, opportunists. But the deeper William and Sophie dig, the more terrifying the pattern becomes. The operation feels informed, like someone predicted their moves before they made them, like someone understands protocol well enough to weaponize it. And then, in whispers, a name begins to surface, not publicly, not officially, but in the kind of quiet gossip that only exists when people are genuinely afraid. Someone with proximity. Someone who would benefit if William takes the blame, if his reputation cracks. If succession narratives shift, the idea lands like a sickness. The monarchy doesn't just have an enemy, it may have a traitor. They arrange a covert meeting to flush out the mastermind, using Andrew's team as bait, because sometimes the only way to reveal a hidden hand is to tempt it into moving. And in the middle of this, a sudden reversal chills the room. Andrew hints he's not allowed to stop, even if he wants to. Not won't. Can't, as if the memoir has become a leash held by someone else. Sophie digs harder, following a quiet trail of contacts, and what she finds is worse than rumour, a confidential connection between Andrew's camp and someone tied to royal operations, close enough to understand access, timing, and internal panic. And that leads to the most explosive question of all. Who is whispering in Andrew's ear? And why do they want William and Sophie to fail? But the final phase isn't about finding the traitor, it's about stopping the memoir before it becomes unstoppable. And William's last move will shock even the people closest to him. When the palace realizes time is running out, William makes a move that changes how people will see him forever, not as the polished heir trained for cameras, but as a man capable of cold, strategic force when the crown is cornered. It doesn't begin with shouting or spectacle. It begins with silence, the kind that spreads through corridors and phone lines like a warning. Within hours, the monarchy's response becomes multi-pronged and merciless. Legal pressure sharpened to terrify anyone who touches the memoir. Quiet buyout attempts delivered through intermediaries who never say the author's name. And internal containment that turns the palace inward checking. Access, tracing leaks, sealing gaps, hunting for the smallest crack where the story might slip through. William isn't improvising, he's authorizing a machine. And Sophie stands beside him, not because she agrees with every step, but because she understands the stakes, because she can feel what William feels but won't admit. That this fight isn't about stopping a book, it's about stopping a collapse of authority that may never recover. Sophie executes the emotional play the palace can't draft into a legal letter. She confronts Andrew directly, and she doesn't do it with cruelty, but with something more dangerous. Truth that sounds like pity. She appeals to legacy, shame, consequences, and the one thing Andrew still clings to even in resentment, how history will remember him when the titles fade and the doors stop opening. For a moment, it seems like the words land, like they reach the part of him that still hears the family name like a heartbeat. But the confrontation turns tense fast, because Andrew's position doesn't collapse politely, it fractures. He reveals fear under the bravado, anger under the sarcasm, and the chilling conviction that he has nothing left to lose. That's what makes him unstoppable, not courage, but emptiness. He isn't bargaining for forgiveness, he's bargaining for impact. And as Sophie presses, she realizes she's not talking to a man trying to survive, she's talking to a man trying to make them feel what he's felt. Abandoned, cornered, erased. Then the operation closes in on the Memoirs' arteries, contracts, servers, backups, intermediaries, and for one breathless beat, it looks like William's ruthless urgency might actually work. The palace believes it can cut the story off at the source, smother it before daylight, bury it under money and threats and sealed agreements. But the terrifying truth arrives like a quiet knife. The memoir can't be destroyed, because the memoir already escaped. Not as a single manuscript hidden in one place, but as multiple copies distributed like insurance, placed with people who don't even need to like Andrew to profit from the chaos. If suppression begins, the switches flip. If pressure tightens, the files move. The monarchy isn't dealing with a book anymore, it's dealing with a system designed to punish control. William and Sophie realize in that instant that the mission has shifted from stop publication to limit the blast radius. Because even if they silence Andrew, they may never silence what he set in motion. And that's where the emotional fallout becomes unavoidable, because the palace has exposed something it can never undo. Fear. Fear of one man's pen. Fear of what the public might believe. Fear that the monarchy's strength was always a performance held together by silence and obedience. Inside the household, trust shatters in slow motion. Everyone starts wondering who helped, who knew, who lied, who smiled in meetings while quietly feeding the fire. William's image transforms overnight. Protector to some, ruthless operator to others. A future king who proved he can move like an enforcer when the family's survival is on the line. And Sophie becomes something unexpected in the rubble, a quiet power center. Respected, feared, and pivotal precisely because she isn't trying to be seen. She's trying to keep the whole structure from imploding. Andrew's fate, meanwhile, turns deliberately ambiguous. Subdued, contained, isolated maybe. Or still plotting from the edges, still convinced the monarchy deserves to be haunted by the thing it tried to silence. Because the real danger isn't even the memoir everyone is chasing, it's the unreleased chapter. The one whispered about like a forbidden room no one admits exists. Something so sensitive it reshapes loyalties, redraws alliances, and forces the family to ask whether protecting the institution means sacrificing the wrong people, or finally exposing the right ones. And just when William thinks he's narrowed the threat to a manageable disaster, a final message arrives, short, direct, and chilling in its confidence. Someone offers him a deal, not to destroy the memoir, because that's impossible now, but to control what the world sees first. The cost, however, isn't money or favors. The cost is William's own future, his credibility, his moral authority, the version of himself he still wants the public to believe in. And that's where the real question hangs in the air, because stopping Andrew's memoir might be possible, but stopping what it reveals about the monarchy may be impossible. Because in the royal family, silence is never permanent. It's just a pause before the next secret demands a price. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.